one and all. I'm happy to be here today. It's a great crowd. This is a lot of people. I really appreciate the previous speakers. I may allude a bit to something that they say at some point. I was told it's a good idea to start with a story, and I'm not really a storyteller, I don't think. But one person I was visiting with last night, by the way, I am a member of Mount St. Scholastica Monastery in Atchison, Kansas, and I am here to speak as an individual, although I believe everybody supports me. Certainly our prioress does. Where was I? I probably lost my point. My story. My story is that I am 85 years old, and that I've been a sister since 1961, whenever that was. I don't know how many years that is, but it's over 60 years, I think, I've been a sister. So here I am. Why am I here? I'm here because I'm American. I'm not very loyal. I'm not a flag waver. I am a pacifist. I try to be because I believe that's part of our monastic history. What else? I don't want to talk about myself. I didn't come here to do that. Anyway, I'm here because of all the reasons our speakers have given. But today, I think I'm going to talk a little bit, I'm changing my notes, of course, a little bit about how we relate our spiritual life to what you're doing here today. And I know many of you are probably not practicing any particular organized religious group, so I hope my remarks will still hit everybody, okay? And we're Catholic. I'm Catholic. I'm going to speak as a Catholic. We do not proselytize, so don't worry about that. Just in case you were. I guess I've been in this pretty much all my life. I've always been interested in international affairs. I'm a minor in history. I love history. I still read historical novels sometimes. I want to talk about two things, really. How are we going to respond? How do we respond to the signs of the times? Some great things have been said. I'll just amplify perhaps a little bit. And then I want to say a little bit about hope. Because we know we just buried our great Holy Father yesterday, and he was a man of hope. So I'm a firm believer that everybody has lots of gifts, and this is a very Benedictine idea, because any gift or talent that we have when we enter our religious community, it will get pulled out of us, sometimes painfully, not in not too long a time, actually, by generally the community. So everybody's got gifts. Some people haven't even discovered all their gifts, and this is true of senior citizens too. So we can all respond in some way, and it will be very different. But I would urge everybody here and everybody in all the different groups that you belong to, try to be an island of sanity. An island of sanity. I like that term because we actually are living, as you know, in a very crazy time, which has been enumerated already. Try and be also leaven. You know, leaven is the yeast in the dough that makes the bread rise, the bread that we survive on as human beings. So be a leaven. Build solidarity in all your groups and try to build it in places where you haven't had solidarity before. For sure, know your elected officials and at all levels, including school board and all these other points that were made here. And know how to contact them. You know, have their phone number or their email handy, because I think we're going to need it in the future. I think we're in something for perhaps a pretty long time to come. So just have that information handy. Choose, let's see here. We're going to skip a little bit of this. One of the things, try and clarify your own values, and that's what the speakers have been doing here today. They're telling us what's important and what we need to work on and what is needed in our world right now. And that is very related to what our basic values as human beings are. So know your values. Try and help young people clarify their values. Somebody told me that if you go to a talk like this, everybody you see will be between the age of 45 and 65. And I think this might be our group here today. Oh, okay. Thank goodness we have a few exceptions, of course. Myself being one of them. If you are a Christian if you're a person of Christian faith, figure out your gospel values. Try and name them for yourself. You know, we've all, learned some and had some, and, faith is like everything else. It kind of wanes and flows and grows and dies and comes back again. And so don't be too hard on your relatives that don't go to church anymore. None of my nieces or nephews have baptized any of their children. Okay, so in a way it's personally painful, but in another sense, God is so much bigger than we are. We just have to remember that God's going to take care of of people. And everybody is made by God, and God doesn't make anybody who isn't wonderful. So everybody's wonderful. A couple of the gospel values that I think right now are needed historically at this time are humility and honesty. And there's been allusion to both of those already this afternoon. I just want to name them again. Humility and honesty. Try and be as honest as you can all the time with absolutely everybody. And it's really hard, I think, anyway. But it's a great goal to have. And remember, you're never going to meet all your goals. You're always going to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, because right now, whether you're helping organize a group or whatever you're doing, of all the wonderful things that have been suggested, some of it's going to fail. Failure is part of the human experience. It's part of how we grow. But we shouldn't be afraid of the mistakes, and that shouldn't keep us from working and doing and reaching out, particularly at this time. In the Catholic tradition, one of our biggest concepts is that of forgiveness and mercy. And so, it's okay to make mistakes. We're not advocating it. Sometimes it's called sin, We don't advocate that. But when it happens, and there's nobody it doesn't happen to, let me assure you, at least I won't go any further with that. See, the miracle of all this, of the fact that I'm a sister, it's only the grace of God that I am. I meant to say that when I said I had been a sister for a very, very long time, because I don't know how it happened. I mean, I look back on it now and realize it's been that many years, and it wasn't me that kept me in the order, I can assure you. But somehow it did in fact happen. So, forgiveness. We want to be people who can forgive ourselves, which is like, okay, and sometimes it's real important. Most of the time we don't have to pay too much attention to that, hopefully. But when you need it, you need it. But be especially careful and conscious of forgiving other people. We got to forgive each other, and we got to do it often, and it's not easy. And it's not easy to follow this path that's been called Christianity, or I think of any of the major faith traditions of the world. I think none of them are easy to follow, and they all take a lot of discipline and a lot of patience and a lot of forgiveness along the way. Let's see, did I say enough? A little bit more. So you got your own moral convictions there. Then you also want to develop your own contemplative stance. And I don't know if I can tell you exactly what that is. The Benedictine order is basically contemplative, although we're known for being educators primarily, at least in the recent history of the world. So if you're going to be a contemplative, I can't tell you exactly what that is, but it means we have the ability to reflect and to stop and think, preferably before we act. When things are going to happen that are crazy at the national level, we shouldn't just run off and do the first thing in the first 5 minutes that we think ought to be done, because that maybe isn't what should be done. We want to have that ability to reflect, to make some really good, rational, intelligent decisions. And we always organize. We don't work alone, we work together then when we respond to all of these things. So be a little bit slow of response. Respond as a group. Should be well planned, and as already mentioned, all of this, it should be nonviolent. So if you're not real familiar with what all nonviolence includes and what it demands and what it is actually can be an entire stance of life. And I know many of you already have and are very familiar with it. For those of you who aren't, you might want to check out what is nonviolence, how to be more nonviolent, how to use nonviolence in your personal prayer life or whatever. Take care of our common home is something we can all do. Everybody can do something. We don't have to. We don't have to do it all, but we ought to do one thing every day. Even if it's just a little tiny thing, as little as a phone call, as little as picking up some trash that blew into your yard from your neighbor's yard, just do something. Partly it's going to make you feel better, believe it or not. I mean, as you know that, when you do things for other people, it helps you sometimes more than it helps them, actually, probably. Okay, we want to let ourselves be intellectually challenged also. And I think this time in itself is doing that. If you can't stand to watch the nightly news, or you got relatives or friends or somebody at home that is just, they think what's going on is so awful, they can't stand it, they get too depressed, then you've got to be a real serious kind of a support for them and to help them understand that if you have an understanding of reality, truth is always good, even if it isn't happy. I mean, we want to know the truth because that's a piece of honesty. God is honest and God is truth. That's a synonym for God. So knowing reality, whatever that ugliness of that reality might be, it's not a bad thing to know the reality. It's our response that's going to make the difference as to how we respond to reality. An old-time saying, as a lot of you in this crowd will know, remember small is beautiful. Try and remember that. A lot of our organizing will be at the local level, and a lot of your actions will be local. But some of you can go to Washington and et cetera, and many of you, in fact, at this group can do that. You want to do something as your group that will gain leverage, if possible. Okay, and I'm not sure what that means exactly in this situation that we're in today. How to get political leverage, how to get economic leverage so that it can have a little more wider impact or create a larger ripple in the pond of whatever the action might be. We want to avoid anger. We'll go through stages of personal anger, certainly, but we don't want to sit in that anger, and we don't want to feed it, and we don't want to nurse that anger. You know what I mean? We got to move on out of that stage of anger, and in fact, try and be more humble, and remember your opponent also has some gifts. That's part of the nonviolent concept. Okay, collect stories of the people directly affected. A lot of you have your own story already, how you've been affected by what's happened in the last few months in this country. But there'll be more and more of those, and you're going to hear more and more stories. That might be your action, collect the stories, of people who are being hurt and changed in ways that are not helpful. What we want to do is try and create a world where it's easier to be good. That's not an original line with me, but I think it's a really important concept. Create a world, a neighborhood, a household, even, that would be wonderful, right? Sometimes, where it's easier to be good. And that certainly includes the children and the young people. God's creation isn't finished. So I want to say a word about hope, because we've heard a lot about chaos today, and I think hope can be a response perhaps to chaos. So we have to remember that we live in an unfinished universe. It is evolving. Catholics believe in evolution. I don't know if you all know that, and maybe not all Catholics know that, but I think that's true anyway. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Because what is evolution? It's change, and we're in extremely rapid social change and political and economic change these days. These years we have been, at least since my lifetime even. There's been a lot of change going on. Change depends, and the faster it goes, I think maybe the more chaos you get. So what we're in chaos right now. So chaos is a stage of evolution, believe it or not, I guess. I think it is in the science world, but I'm not one who could really answer that for sure. But you all know a scientist who can tell you the answer. So we want to build the kingdom of God, and that's what evolution is. Evolution is pushing the whole thing forward, in our own little ways, with our own little gifts, in our own little groups or bigger groups. Working together, being a loving person, developing our own humility, our own modesty is a kind of humility, perhaps. Sometimes that might be a piece of it for some people. And so the change is going to be fruitful in the end. So I don't know that I will live long enough to see the end of this current chaos happening. This could go on for a while. I hate to say that. But I believe in evolution, and I believe in the goodness of God's creation, and I believe it will somehow, perhaps in a different form, keep going forward. I don't know that I have a great sentence of inspiration here to end on. I would suggest you try to recover a sense of awe and wonder about other people, about nature, about beauty. Beauty saves the world, We need a lot of beauty in the world. And many of you are artists. If you're an artist or can encourage one to use your gifts, because all art should be a reflection of beauty in some manner. Do I have anything else on here? Should I say anything else? Stay hopeful, stay together, exclude no one, be a pilgrim of hope, and be an island of sanity. Thank you.